favorite speech in movies is Rocky Balboa to his son, the spoiled brat son in the sixth movie, when he finally has it out with him in the street. And he says, life is not about how hard you can hit. Life's about how hard you can get hit, get back up, and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. We've lost that as a society. How does that help any part of that equation? It doesn't. So we've become a society. It's changing. I think the Trump win again is a big moment in the sand for this. To say no, actually, and particularly for young men, you can be proud of being a young man. You don't have to hate yourself just because every corporate woke marketing campaign told you that you're all hateful losers until you can prove you're not all a bunch of Harvey Weinsteins running around, right? Now men are being told it's okay to be a guy. And you can be proud. And by the way, and if you are, here are the things that you should do to be a good man in life. But you can beat your chest a bit. You can celebrate achievement. You can want to win. You can celebrate winning. And you can hate.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Making the Case, episode 114. We're talking about young men and masculinity. If you couldn't tell by the clip that I just showed, I thought that would be a great opening piece to this episode. This episode is definitely going to be very heavy. It's a very heavy episode because it's a heavy topic. It's a topic that is not going anywhere. It's a topic that must be addressed and will continue to be addressed because how can it not be, right? Anytime we talk about masculinity and femininity, those are two topics that, of course, are going to forever be with us. But before we move forward, of course, my name is Dr. Jacob Isom. We have two channel norms here on Making the Case. One, we attack points and not people. And then two, we don't do all that cussing derogatory stuff because we're professional over here. All right. But I thought that in that clip, Piers Morgan made a very good point. And to me, what I took from that is the fact that what makes a man a masculine man, right, is men have to fail in order to really learn a lesson, right? That's why we usually say boys are hard-headed because, well, they are, right? I'm raising a young man right now. It's very hard-headed. I also have a daughter, right? The difference is night and day. For anybody that want to say that we should raise boys and girls the same way or boys and girls are the same, you must not be a parent and you must not have raised a boy and a girl. They're different, right? Their temperament is different. The way they describe emotions are different. Now, of course, the environment you grow in is very huge, but let me not digress. Let me not get off my point. But what I'm trying to say is that men must learn through failure because a lot of time we don't listen. We have to bump our head. We have to get knocked down to get up to really hone those skills that we need in order to be a man. All right. So we always hear about what makes a man, what makes a woman, what makes up masculinity, what makes femininity. It baffles me when I hear women telling men what is masculinity or how they should be a man. Now, women can voice what they want from men. That's totally different, right? Just like I don't think women, and I've heard this, right? Women wouldn't dare say that men could tell a woman how to be feminine and how to be a woman, right? It's the same thing. So this topic is very heavy and very deep because in one sense it's subjective, but in another sense it's not, right? The objectivity comes from our biological imperative, right? Our chemical makeup, the fact that males are stronger than females and we have a larger body mass and things of that nature, right? It's certain biological things that we're just born with, right? But unfortunately, a lot of conversation always happen around our social independence, right? What we think men and women should be doing, what we think masculinity is and what we think femininity is, right? So a lot of times we get swept up in our own emotions about what we think the opposite sex should be doing. And a lot of times that becomes the problem. And to be honest with you, I just think that we like to have conversation around this because it's entertainment for a lot of us. And let's be real, a lot of people either make their paycheck that way or they just like to go back and forth, right? So the whole conversation around masculinity and femininity is a very emotional conversation because it's also power based at the end of the day. What we know and what we have seen, we know that the whole push for, or I should say the decline in the masculine man came with the first feminine movement, right? Which was the mid to late 1800s. And ever since that time, we've seen a shift in the thinking about what a masculine man is. Because think about it. We talk about a term of toxic masculinity, but we don't talk about the opposite, which would be toxic femininity, which neither exists, by the way. I think I might have mentioned this on another video. Or the whole notion that people are misogynists when they speak a certain way, right? But we never talk about misandry, right? So toxic femininity and misandry is never discussed. It's never programs or documentaries done on them. That should let you know something, right? Because at the end of the day, we can only go with facts. And a lot of times the facts come from observation, right? When things happen over and over and over, when you clearly can see the shift in the thinking about masculinity, right? In the thinking about what a male role should be, how a male should treat a woman, right? When I was young, one thing I definitely knew is I knew I was constantly being bombarded with how I should treat a woman, but I was never told how a woman should treat me. That should tell you everything you need to know. All right. So I have two videos for us today. And we're gonna break these down because there's some interesting things are said in both of these videos, and I really want to do a deep dive into both of them. And you can let me know what you agree with, what you disagree with, and let's just have the conversation. All right. So without further ado, let's get into our first video clip.
Now on the crisis afflicting young men in this country. It's a topic that's come to the forefront lately. We talk of toxic masculinity, but also the massive success of shows like Adolescence, which I was chatting with you before. And Governors Westmore and Gretchen Whitmer recently announced plans to focus on helping boys and men in their states. You're currently writing a book on the subject called Notes on Being a Man. Do you feel that we've reached a tipping point? Because although you've been saying this for a long time, it feels like people are catching on now.
I think we're moving. And before he gets started, and before we really go in and dissect, and there are people like him and other people who, are immersed in the data, study boys and things of that nature, but also understand that, of course, a lot of this come from, it does come from biology, right? But once again, I want to bring out that we're talking about socially what we think that men are supposed to be doing that makes up what we will consider masculinity, which has a very deep air of subjectiveness. Okay, so I want to point that out before he really get go into what he's going to say. And the fact that what she pointed out that a lot of states, they are so concerned about what boys, young boys and young men are going through that they are pushing initiatives, right? And which I think is pretty interesting. Not that I don't think it's a necessity, but I think it's pretty interesting. But that should let you know that the pendulum has swung too far to the other side, where we focus so much on feminism and women's rights and, making sure they're comfortable, making sure they don't feel oppressed and things of that nature, the Me Too movie, and the list goes on, where we have alienated young boys and young men. Let's keep going.
Moving to a more productive, people do recognize there's an issue, right? 4 times more likely to kill themselves 3 times more likely to be addicted, 12 times more likely to be incarcerated. I think mostly led by mothers who see something's going on. We've now turned to a more productive part of the conversation is what do we do about it? And I wrote.
My bad, but I'm sorry. I had to touch on because unfortunately he won't say it, so I have to say it. A lot of times those stats he just brought up is a lot of those boys come from single parent homes, which we don't want to put the blame on women. But what feminism has done is it has created a household where the man is not valued. The woman feel like she can do bad all by herself, right? And now she's left to raise this young boy who's angry, who's going through a different state in his adolescence because boys change. That's where a lot of their hormones get pushed out. Their testosterone go through the roof. And that woman cannot handle that because she can't teach a boy how to be a man. He left that part out. Let's keep going.
With this book, because I think everybody needs a code to help them, guide them through the millions of decisions they have to make around personal and professional activity. You can get it from your religion, your family, from the military, from work. I think we can get, for young men, I like the idea of restoring an aspirational vision of masculinity that can serve as a code. And I don't think there's anything wrong with leaning into your femininity or your masculinity if it feels natural. And for me, masculinity is, and I'm open to criticism here. This is a tough one that triggers a lot of people.
I'm about to criticize you. Like, I don't know what he mean by that. Like leaning into your masculine and feminine. Now, what we understand is we are energy, right? The sun is energy. Our human body is energy. Matter is energy, right? Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. We do know that, right? We talking science here, right? But we do know there is and this is a universal principle, a universal law, right? The law of polarity, right? So up, down, left, right. So we got masculinity and femininity. We understand these energies. But what we also do understand is, yes, some men have a definitely a larger percentage of estrogen, right? Some women have a larger percentage of testosterone. We do understand that. That's a lot of times where the whole homosexual agenda comes from on the biological side, and we know there's social ramifications too. Okay? But to tell boys that, hey, lean into your femininity, that's not the right message. Let's keep going.
But I think the 3 pillars are provider. I think every man at the outset of his career should assume that he needs to take economic responsibility for his household. And by the way, sometimes,
or at least for himself.
And sometimes that means getting out of the way of your partner who happens to be better at that money thing and taking up the slack in other parts of the household.
And but not being mad about it.
And be supportive.
Yeah.
My partner, when we had kids, was working at Goldman, making more money than me, so I tried to step up. That's also being a man. 2, and this triggers people, being a procreator. I think wanting to mate, that fire of desire, can be channeled, if it's channeled in the right ways, to making you a better man, making you kinder, making you stronger. For God's sakes, thinking about how you dress, showering for God's sakes, being persistent, initiating contact. The scariest stat I have read is that 51% of men age 18 to 24 have never asked a woman out in person. And surveys show, distinct to what the media tells you, the majority of women still want men to initiate romantic contact while making them feel safe. 3rd pillar.
And before he goes into the 3rd one, and now I agree with the numbers, of course, the data is the data, right? And I do think women, because women are not in mass, are not going to do the approaching. We know men got to do that, right? But here's the problem, because what we also hear is we know women are chameleons at times, right? And they can't make up their mind. We hear 2 different messages. One is, yes, we want you to approach, but the other hand is, stop being creepy. Like, well, you don't have to say nothing to me and stuff like that. So we're hearing 2 different messages, but what women are really saying is, if you are attractive and I find you appealing, I want you to approach. If I find you unattractive and I think you can't bring me value, I don't want you to approach. we got to be honest about it, right? That's just what needs to be said. Okay, let's keep going.
You're a protector, right? Your default operating system is you protect. If you think about the most masculine jobs, cop, fireman, military, what do they do at the end of the day? They protect. Your default should always be protection, right? It breaks my heart. And then in New York, if you talk to women, a lot of them say they don't feel safe on the subway. Or if they see men walking down the street that cross the sidewalk. From an early age, we gotta teach our boys that the transition to manhood means your default operating system is protection. And it's not just physical. It's if you hear people criticizing others behind their back, your default is to weigh in and defend. You may not agree with the transgender community. You may not.
For those of you that are watching me, listen very closely to me. Do not listen to him. That's a good way to get your life ended. If words are being exchanged, because remember, we live in a country with free speech. And that's one thing that we always like to say. I have the right to say this. If people are talking and they're not putting their hands on you, you let that go, right? I get protection, right? It's one thing to be in a situation when you with your mate. Part of protection also understanding that, hey, this is the cue to leave, all right? Protection is not always physical and violence, right? Protection is also saying, you know what? Nah, that's not an appropriate thing to wear. Protection is also, you know what? We shouldn't be going here. Protection is also, I don't think this is a good neighborhood for us to live in. See, a lot of times we don't like to talk about those different aspects of protection. Okay? Let's keep going.
Agree that corporations need to have a third bathroom. You may not believe in gender affirmation, but when you see a group being demonized, your default setting as a man is you move to protection. We are providers, we're protectors, and we're procreators. There is nothing wrong with masculinity. It is a wonderful guidepost.
And I know I keep stopping, but like I said, we was going to do a deep dive. I agree. When it comes to being masculine, protector, provider, procreator. That's the core, that's the holy trinity when it comes to masculinity. That is what a man should do. Now, it's going to vary and look a little bit different in every household, in every man. But still, those are the core tenets. All right, let's keep going.
Lean in. We just need to redefine what it means to be a man. You add surplus value. You create more tax revenue than you absorb. You protect people. You witness their lives. You register more complaints than you actually complain. And if you leave this earth having given more than you've taken, then you leave this world as a man. That is what it means to be a man. That was a rant.
But it was clear, you know, it was clear and succinct. And that's why I liked it, because it's not, you're not wondering what you mean. It's very clear. Here are the things that go into being a man. And they're not the things that people tell you. You don't have to be Popeye, you know, but you got to be present. You got to know you have to be able to reach out and talk to people. And I think, you know, a lot of this has to do with people not connect, not with her phone, but people don't connect. You know, we get questions here and we always say, I say, go to a bar.
Yeah.
Smell the people.
100%.
You know?
People.
And if they haven't showered, get the hell out.
Let me, just so we can have a YouTube clip. I think young people should drink more.
I agree.
I don't see drunkenness, I see togetherness. I advise young people to get out of the house more, drink more, make a series of bad decisions that might pay off. And also,
and the crazy part about it, they laughing at it and she agreeing and stuff like that. Like, and I get that was for comedy release, but come on, this was a serious conversation and now you get people chiming in with little silly remarks. I don't know, but just wait, because he's about to say something super egregious here in a second.
Just to the point about masculine femininity, masculinity is not sequestered to people born as men. There are wonderful women who demonstrate wonderful masculinity. My closest male friends are more feminine because I'm drawn to men who take care of me and are a little bit more nurturing.
Yeah.
And this is where we're going to stop it, because this is where he lost me. All right. To tell a young man to lean into your femininity, to tell a woman that, oh, you're better off being masculine. Huh? Like, no, we want men to be men and we want women to be women. That is the balance. So how are you going to get two people together and the woman is acting more masculine than the man, and the man is acting more feminine than the woman? Unfortunately, that is kind of where we are right now. And really not no kind of. Okay. Women are complaining about men being too soft, and men are complaining about women being too hard. But you gonna sit up on national television and tell people that. And that is the problem with the conversation. I was with you when you said the protector, provider, and procreator. I'm with you. But when you start telling me, hey, you can lean into your femininity, no. Do we all possess masculine and feminine energy? Yes, we do. But in order for this society, this culture, and this world to thrive in a harmonious state, we need men to be men and women to be women. Period. There's no discussion about it. All right. Let's get into our next video clip. This was a whole special that was done by PBS. And I respect PBS, but this was a little questionable. But all right, let's get into it.
Now to growing concerns around the proliferation of misogyny online and its migration into real-world interactions, especially those involving young men. John Yang has this story about a Detroit teenager's experience and the broader implications of this trend.
Like many his age, Brian Campbell says he grew up an iPad kid, playing a lot of video games.
You about to lose anyway, it don't matter.
And when the COVID pandemic forced schools to shift to remote learning when he was 12, his primary connection with friends was online.
I would spend all my time on the internet. Either I'm playing the video game or on TikTok, or both. Fortnite, NBA 2K. If me and my friends get bored playing it for 10 hours, then we scroll on TikTok and send each other videos, and then we get back to playing the game.
Eventually, content with a specific perspective.
And before they really go deep into it, I would say somebody who's been working with kids and teenagers and adults for 20 plus years now, I've seen the technological shift happen from when, of course, when I was young, there was no cell phones. I remember when cell phones started getting popular because I used to have a beeper, a pager, for those of you that might not know. And so I seen the shift in the classroom, and I also seen the shift outside of the classroom. And I also was around when COVID happened and kids were doing more things online, right? So, and that was a huge part. But to be honest with you, before COVID, kids were still online heavy, right? So the whole notion that, kids kind of change after COVID, it has a little validity, but at the end of the day, social media just in general has changed everything, particularly for these babies that's growing up in these computer internet generation that's all they know, right? Kids, I know my son had a phone, iPad in his hand by the age of probably 3, right? So and it just looks different nowadays. Let's keep going.
Started showing up on Campbell's feeds.
It is so easy to become a top-tier male in the world today because the competition is so ridiculously low.
Topics masqueraded as informational kind of male improvement. I think a lot of these people have lived more life. They're rich, they're nice car, all that. Like what society says is the ideal for a young man.
The message appealed to Campbell, and the more he engaged with it, the more he saw. Campbell had found himself in the heart of what's known as the manosphere. The term broadly refers to online communities that create and share content aimed at men and boys. But there's growing concern about the ideas behind that content. Misogynistic, often conspiratorial beliefs about gender roles and masculinity.
And this is the sad thing, because when programs like PBS get attached to it, or CNN or Fox or any other news channel, right, or TV network, they're always going to push a certain narrative. And this is the issue just in general, right? With the whole idea of liberalism and feminism, right? They push the whole narrative that, you know, masculinity is bad, the whole quote unquote idea of toxic femininity or toxic masculinity. And that if you are pushing for traditional gender roles, or if you're saying the role that women have created in the destruction of family, if you speaking on family core laws and stuff like that, you're misogynistic, right? Because they don't want you to paint the full picture. They only want you to talk about how bad men are. Because think about it. There was no programs like this talking about misandry or toxic femininity. When Ricky Lake and Jesse's what's her name? Sally Jesse, and Oprah and shows like this that will always do programming when it comes to talking about men, they never talked about misandry. We don't talk about misandry. We don't talk about how toxic women can be, right? And now that you have a space like the manosphere, the red pill, they're speaking up and talk about now. Do you have extremists? Absolutely. But every culture, every community, every movement does, right? So to blanket the manosphere or the red pill community as just a community that is just misogynistic is totally out of bounds. And this has come from a person, I'm an independent. I'm not part of no community. I don't want to be lumped in none of your organizations. I'm not Democrat, Republican, Christian, Muslim. I'm not none of that. I'm an independent. I talk from an objective nature. Let's keep going.
And thanks to a handful of key influencers, the manosphere's reach has exploded. In an attempt to quantify that growth, researchers in Dublin set up accounts on multiple social media apps, posing as teenage boys. Last year, they reported that in less than half an hour, every one of the accounts was fed manosphere content, whether they sought it out or not.
In the post-Me Too movement, we've seen this surge of online misogyny in particular.
Cynthia Miller Idris is the founder of the Polarization and Extremism Research and Innovation Lab at American University. Her book, Man Up, The New Misogyny and the Rise of Violent Extremism, will be published in the fall.
They land on an influencer who's offering them often very tangible and real help that makes a difference, right? Like get 8 hours of sleep and drink water and get to the gym. And they package that with scapegoating of women or treatment of women or an idea of success as being, dominant. And so, your life is improving while you're starting to believe this other stuff.
Women sell purity, men sell success.
This is seen as a more dominant position.
A woman wants sex more than the guy does.
The average woman will always cheat more than the average man.
That's the sort of content Campbell was seeing. Soon, he was echoing those ideas.
How, like, women want to control us and, us as young men, we have to not be at the whim of women and stuff I didn't really know what I was talking about, but it sounded good.
Campbell's dad, Al.
And you know what the crazy part? All those clips and a lot of things, what they said, like, most of it is just true, right? When we started talking about women nature versus man nature and how things are, and when we start looking at CEOs and people at the head of the game and rich and stuff like that, they possess certain traits and qualities, right? As men. Now, you can call it toxic or misogynistic all you want to, right? But a lot of times that's just adverse to the opposite, which would be feminine, right? So if it goes against a woman, it's misogynistic, unfortunately. That's kind of how we didn't put things out there, right? So what have we done? Oh, we open doors for women, we protect women, we do this, we do that, right? So if you're not doing what a woman wants you to do, you misogynistic. Hey, just keep going.
Al and his older brother Brandon, who had fallen down similar rabbit holes when he was younger, noticed a change.
He started mentioning a lot of things typical of someone who believes that the world is against them, where you think that if you are not, I'll say in quotes, superior, then something's wrong. He was kind of taking on opinions that didn't sound like his own. They were opinions that I myself once had because I had gained them from someone else.
While Brian was seeing this material, were you aware of it?
I guess I didn't really pick up on it at first. Over time, you say a few things, it gets a little concerning, like, hey, my wife's going to clean up after me, being the alpha male and the this and the that and the type of guy that's the strongest, the baddest, and everybody needs to bow down and respect you, but then you don't have to respect anybody else.
When it comes to behavior like this, there's really no excuse for it, but there may be an explanation for it.
Psychologist and author Lisa D'Amour specializes in adolescent development.
It's helpful to think about 12-year-old boys in broader context. Girls hit puberty before boys do. So what this means is that for 7th grade boys in general, the girls are often beating them at recess, and then they come into the classroom and the girls are often beating them in school. So if you are a 12 or 13-year-old boy and you have had a very rough day at school.
And the crazy part about it is she said that with a straight face, and those comments are not misandrous. So you're saying overall, and I don't know what she mean by beating boys at recess. Does she mean like physically? Like, I don't know what she mean by that. Like, now, yes, the numbers do show that boys a lot of time are lagging behind girls, but that's really after the 3rd grade. When it comes to kindergarten, 1st and 2nd, they pretty neck and neck. Okay? Because we're putting the same thing into our young kids at that point, right? Once boys hit 3rd grade, they get a little more energetic. We start diagnosing them with ADHD and things of that nature. So things are starting to change because we're more likely to dope up our boys than we are our girls. Because boys are going to be a little bit more hyper. So we misdiagnose them. We mistreat them. But if that was a man saying, you know what, boys, we just strong or we just misogynistic, you can't say that. This clip right here, and it's funny that nobody actually edited this and took this out, but this clip right here shows you the ideology that exists in a feminist world that we live in right now. I mean, it's just crazy. I'm gonna show just a little bit more, and then we gonna end this.
Where a girl outran you at recess and then had all the right answers when you didn't understand what was happening in class. And you come home feeling pretty small and you hop online and there is somebody telling
Sound like a feminist? Maybe?
you, listen, guys are actually great. And the thing that's holding us back are girls. That is pretty compelling.
Jamie, I want you to listen carefully.
Online radicalization and the manosphere are at the center of the Emmy-nominated Netflix miniseries Adolescence, the platform's most-watched show in the first half of the year, with 145 million views. It's a fictional account of how these influences lead a teenage boy to murder a female classmate.
It's a call to action by the manosphere. 80% of women are attracted to 20% of men. You must trick them because you'll never get them in a normal way.
In real life, there's a growing number of examples of manosphere culture affecting interactions between boys and girls.
It's like little things like, oh, you should be back in the kitchen. And even though it's a joke, some people take it really far.
There are games that I've stopped playing because every single time I joined, I'd receive a rape threat.
Me and my former roommate were chased on campus by 2 different men saying that they were going to have a lot of fun with us that night.
Those kinds of things are have migrated from, online worlds into real life, sometimes in ways that boys are just trying to be provocative, sometimes in ways that are really dangerous stepping stones on the way to more harmful and violent content and behaviors.
Experts say the key to combating the spread of these ideas and preventing their worst effects is to engage with young men.
Don't start with a lecture. Start instead with a question. Ask, have you seen...
All right, so we're just going to stop the video there. I actually had enough of that. And for the untrained eye, you wouldn't be able to see the propaganda and the push toward making it look like the manosphere and just men in general are just out to get women because they're pushing this certain message out there that we want to harm women. To the contrary, naturally, most men want to protect women. And as the guy was saying in the first video clip, that a lot of times it's our natural imperative to be a protector, right? No one had to tell me that I should protect somebody. It was already one thing. Anytime when it comes to something happening, and this doesn't have to be my family or friends or kids, that I'm just naturally protective of other people, right? Which is part of the reason which led me into the career path that I'm in now. But like when you're spreading certain messages, because I agree that there are certain messages in the manosphere in the red pill community that are detrimental, that not the greatest messages, right? When it comes to using and abusing your power as a man, and doing things that is not just going to be to the it's going to be to the detriment of a woman, and not going to be to the the balance between a man and woman that should exist. But to say that it shouldn't exist and certain messages shouldn't be pushed, because we do understand that there are extremists when it comes to feminism, when it comes to liberalism, that are pushing a certain way and pushing certain messages. There are books out there that's being written on homosexuality, which is crazy to me. But like, how can you say that's normal or that should happen, but men shouldn't speak about women nature and how we can combat the family court system and things of that nature that go against men? We're told that we're toxic for trying to hold women accountable, right? I myself have been told that I'm a misogynistic, even by my own family. I love you, you know who you are, but I love you though, okay? But once you start speaking out and start speaking the truth, because nobody want to attack my points, people always want to attack me. That's when you know you saying something. Okay, so this topic, like I said in the beginning, it's not going nowhere. We got to discuss this though, right? We should be able to hold men and women accountable, speak truth, and look for ways and solutions in order for us to get better. And we just got to be real. Some things are just going to be inherent in us that we're going to do, that we're going to have to learn to live with. Like, and I know people hate talking about the whole cheating thing and monogamy and stuff like that, but that is not going anywhere. So it's a lot of things we could talk about, being masculine and being feminine, but at the end of the day, we need to look at experimentation, observation, what do we know, and stop focusing on feelings all the time, emotions. Well, I feel this. Anytime somebody start with that, you know you're in trouble. All right, we're going to end the episode, man. Hopefully, you gained a new perspective, because, stuff like this, I mean, it's not going anywhere. And unfortunately, it's going to keep getting worse if we don't sit down and have some serious conversations about what we're doing to each other as genders. Men be tripping sometimes and women be tripping sometimes. And that's just the truth. We can go line for line when it comes to cheating, when it comes to what roles we should have. We can go line for line. But at the end of the day, most people want traditional roles. But saying that, a woman role is cooking and cleaning and nurturing is misogynistic. I don't know. All right. Anywho, man, y'all know I appreciate y'all, man, for rocking with me. We on episode 114. We're gonna keep knocking them out. As always, I'm you are me. Love always, love eternal. Remember, the worst thing you can do is lie to yourself. Hey, and we out. Deuces. One love.